Okay, very good morning to all of you this morning. We are due to start in 5 minutes time. It's 10:55 on the clock, and a very warm welcome to everyone that's tuned in this morning, and also from our colleagues that are tuned in from on the YouTube live stream. So thank you so much for giving your time this morning. So please be on standby. We will begin proper at 11:00 a.m. Fiji time. Yes, good morning. A warm Pacifica greetings to all of you this morning. It's really wonderful that we have this opportunity to share what we have learned in our journey through open and distance learning. So it's a really wonderful time that you've given us, and I know your time is very precious. So a very warm welcome to all of you. And this morning, we have a wonderful panel of speakers. But before we start proper with the presentations, I just would like to give a bit of background on just a bit of background on the webinar itself. We started this journey in a webinar. It's actually a series of 3 webinars. The first 2 were not made available outside our institution, but we decided this final one was to be the one that we would share with the outside world. So we really appreciate your time this morning. And our topic is on rethinking strategies for online assessment. And in the first webinar, we looked at rethinking strategies, specifically looking at online tests and exams, particularly at this time around the world where we are experiencing a pandemic. We have realized those that are practitioners, those that are teachers, those that are in the educational realm have realized the critical role that remote learning through various distance and online means have become forefront. And that was the first focus in our first webinar. Then we moved on to the second webinar, which looked at online labs and simulations. And from that, we arrived now in our final webinar, and this specifically looks at rethinking strategies for online assessment in online presentations and group work. Okay, so that is our focus this morning, this hour. I have to be mindful what time frame I'm referring to, because I believe in some places those that have joined our webinar this morning, it might be night in some places, or even the wee hours of the morning, because I believe we have some of our friends from India that are tuned in this morning. So a very warm welcome to all of you that are tuned in from all over the world. We've had overwhelming registrations from wonderful places like Maldives, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, even our friends and family here within the region, Pacific region, from Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Guam. So we warmly welcome you. And of course, Tonga, we're not forgetting our friendly Isles of Tonga. So a warm welcome to all of you. Okay, before I move any further, I would just like to share screen now. I just felt that before moving on to the presentations, I just feel like we need to share a bit of background about the University of the South Pacific. So just give me a second while I share my screen. Okay, on your screen right now, I'm sharing a map of the region that we serve. The University of the South Pacific was formed in 1968. So this year would become our 52nd year, if I'm correct, mathematically correct. This should be our 52nd year. And we are what you call a regional university, meaning that this university is owned by 12 member countries, island countries in the South Pacific Oceania region. And we would be one of 2 regional universities in the world, the other being the University of the West Indies. And University of the West Indies is owned by 15 countries in the Caribbean region. So we are one of the 2 regional universities. So as you can see on the map, that's the region, the vast Pacific Ocean that we serve. And as you can see, some of you may be hearing some of the countries for the first time. places like Kiribati, Nauru, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Tuvalu, Samoa, Niue, Tonga, Cook Islands, Tokelau, Republic of the Marshall Islands, and Tonga, and Fiji, of course, forgetting Fiji. And if you're wondering, okay, where can I find these USP member countries on the world map? As you can see, most of us know where Australia is. So say, for instance, if you wish to travel by plane from Fiji to Australia, it would take about 3 to 4 hours from Australia to Fiji, specifically Sydney. If you were to travel from Fiji to Sydney, it would take about 3 to 4 hours, 3.5 hours by plane. So that's where we are in terms of if you situate us in the world, okay? And we have been in the business of open and distance learning since the early 1970s. As you can see, we are separated by vast oceans. So it seems like it made sense that we use open and distance learning as a means of reaching out to our people in our 12 countries. Initially in the 1970s, we started off with very basic print-based materials. We went on to teleconferencing, video conferencing, and now we are into the online learning realm of things. So yeah, so that's just sharing a little bit about the region that we serve. Now I'm moving on. I just would like to give everyone a background of what's going to be done today. Straight after this, I will just take you through some very key housekeeping matters that we all need to be aware of as participants in this webinar. Following on from that, we'll have opening remarks. I will introduce our keynote opening address. Then following on from that, we'll release our first poll. Okay, we would like all of you to participate in this poll that's been prepared by presenters this morning. Then following on from introduction of our presentation, our second poll, we have a Q&A segment towards the end, and then we'll end with our summing up. Okay, now I'll move on to the housekeeping matters. Just to give you a bit of explanation, most of you may be familiar with using Zoom as a means of communicating with colleagues, with friends, with family. What we would normally be used to is the Zoom meeting. In this case, we are using the Zoom webinar interface. So this webinar interface will not enable you to see other participants. Or also, you will not be able to share your audio video, unless, of course, as host, we'll allow you to do that. But we're confining it just to viewing of the panelists, the panel of speakers, video and audio. For any form of interaction, please, in relation to the presentations that is going to be given this morning, this hour, we would like you to put that in the Q&A panel. So the Q&A panel is located at the bottom of your screen. You should view the Q&A panel. Please post all questions relating to the presentations in the Q&A panel. Should you have any issues with your technical setup, or if you wish to say hello to anyone, please use the chat panel for this purpose. Okay? And I also wish to let everyone know that this session is also recorded. So soon after the webinar, we will be releasing, perhaps it'll take about a week or so, we will be releasing information about where you can access the recording of this session. And we're delighted, for the first time, we are also live streaming this webinar via our YouTube channel, which is on your screen. That is www.usp.ac.fj/live. So some of you may wish to share this with colleagues who have not registered. You can simply share the YouTube live stream with them. So that's as far as our housekeeping goes today. So I will now move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is to introduce to you our opening address this morning. Our opening remarks this morning, we are so delighted to have Professor Som Naidu. Professor Som Naidu is currently our Pro Vice Chancellor and Director of our Center for Flexible Learning here at the University of the South Pacific. And many of you will know, those who are in the ODL community will know that Professor Som Naidu is quite well known with his publications, with his various works. He's done tremendous work over a span of over 30 years. Prior to joining USP, Professor Som Naidu was Associate Professor at Swinburne University Technology in Melbourne. He also held positions, academic positions as Associate Professor in Director of Learning and Teaching and Learning Quality at Charles Stewart, as well as the University of Melbourne. And aside from that, he's also worked in various places around the world, spanning from the South Pacific Islands, India, Sri Lanka, Africa, even in places like New Zealand, Canada, UK, the list goes on. So he's widely published books, book chapters. You can simply do a Google of Professor Som Naidu. You'll find all the works that he's done over the years. And also, just recently, he was awarded the professorship recognition from the Open University of Sri Lanka in 2014. So yeah, we're so delighted to have you this morning, PVC. And just recently this week, we have been informed that he's also become a principal fellow of the Higher Education Academy, HEA, which is based in Britain. So it's, as we found out, this is quite a prestigious recognition. So we acknowledge that as well in this introduction. So without further ado, I would like to give the time now to Professor Som Naidu to give the opening remarks. Professor Som Naidu.
Ala, thank you very much, Ala. Can I just get a thumbs up from you if I'm being heard? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Ala, for those remarks. But more than that, I would want to go on record to thank you and your team for organizing this event and the previous events like the ones that you outlined, because this is a very significant initiative of the Center for Flexible Learning, where we both work, and of the University of the South Pacific. I'm very delighted to be part of this process and the activities that we are organizing. So foremost, I would want to go on record to thank you and your team for organizing this, and I wish you well in this event. But let me just make a few comments. So I'm sure your speakers are raring to go, and I want to thank you, the speakers, for willing to be part of this event. As you outlined just a while ago, that the focus of today's discussions are going to be around online presentations and group work. I want to just make a few comments about group work to sort of frame the conversations. Many of us will agree, I think all of us will agree, that learning can be both a solo activity as well as a social process, and there's a lot of literature around that. What we are going to be talking about today is learning as a social process. And those of us who have been in the business of learning and teaching for some time will appreciate and realize the difficulties of organizing and arranging learning activities in group situations and social processes. It becomes even more difficult in the online learning environment. And this is what has led us to, and you and your team and us, to organize a bit of a conversation around that. When we are talking about group-based learning in online learning environments, we could be talking about two kinds of arrangements. One is group-based learning synchronously, and the other one is group-based learning asynchronously. And different kinds of technologies are becoming available now, more so after the COVID crisis, to enable us to participate and arrange and participate group-based learning synchronously and asynchronously. And the most important point that I want to leave your team with and your participants with is that group-based learning in any kind of a situation, let alone online, requires a great deal of thinking, a great deal of design. Do not think that you can put a bunch of students, however large the number, in online environment, in group-based learning will take place. More than likely, it will not take place. So if you are going to be thinking about engaging in group-based learning online specifically, then you need to think through the actual steps in the process. Now, let me make a couple of things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know a lot about how group-based learning works. Just look at the literature on problem-based learning, look at the literature on scenario-based learning, look at the literature on case-based learning. We know how groups work. We know how groups can work well. The question is, how do you make these work in an online learning environment? Fortunately, we live at a time when a lot of tools and technologies are becoming available. So group-based learning doesn't necessarily, in an online environment, doesn't necessarily mean that you put a whole lot of registrants into a discussion forum or an open collaborative learning space and tell them to discuss something. You have to orchestrate, you have to think through what would be the architecture of that session or of that activity. Some of the tools that I have found very useful, many of these you will know yourself, and let me just mention a couple of these, has to do with strategies and tools that you can use, for example, in relation to social annotation. So imagine you put a bunch of students into a discussion forum or into a place, but what would they do there? What are they going to discuss? So one of the things that you could do is, for example, give, say, a reading, which you would normally do to your students anyway, and everybody has to read that. And you can now, the online learning technologies are becoming available to enable you to annotate those readings such that every person in the group is able to see what the other students have done. I mean, Google Docs is a good example that most of us would have used, so that you can place these articles in places or readings in places where people can annotate it, and we can, all of us, see each other's comments, and then you can have a conversation about it. So this is what I meant by designing the online collaboration activity prior to the activity being implemented. Some of the things that I've found, a couple of points, and then I will stop talking. Where does video, we know a lot about how, text-based, group-based discussions can take place. We know about discussion forums. We know about, those sorts of things where people actually write comment. But the video technology is becoming much easier to use now. Two examples that I've come across recently. One is called Flipgrid, F-L-I-P, P as in Peter, grid, G-R-I-D, D as in David. Now, if you don't know about it, just Google it. This is a technology whereby, a teacher can pose a question and people can actually video record their presentations, 1 or 2 minutes, or not presentations, responses. So the responses come not in textual form, but in video format. More exciting is something called marginal syllabus, and I want to leave you with that. Again, you can Google this, marginal syllabus. Marginal syllabus is a technology which allows people to have a discussion about a reading, about a book chapter, about an activity, about a source, anything that you do, for example, even in a face-to-face classroom. Imagine a book club. Many of you will have the idea of what a book club is. You read a book and you come and discuss the book. That's a book club, isn't it? You have it in a face-to-face setting. Now imagine taking a book club online. A marginal syllabus is a tool that allows you to do that. And these are, well, open source. You can download them, you can use them, and you integrate them in your teaching, whereby you can assign readings, you can assign activities to students, and then they come together and make their comments about that article or about that book in video format. So what I basically said is that, you know, we don't have to be limited to a textual means of collaboration. That video is becoming now a lot more easier to use and adopt in an online learning environment, so that people who find it difficult to, you know, compose extensive pieces of text can just speak their comments, which is what we would do in a classroom situation, isn't it? You don't actually write your responses. Somebody asks you a question, you respond to a question in class, or a comment in class. So I just wanted to leave you with those thoughts. You know, you can explore these ideas, you know, flip grid and social annotation and marginal syllabus in your own time, and see how you can integrate. The most important point that I want to leave you with is that whatever you do in an online environment, you need to orchestrate it. You need to design it carefully. Otherwise, it will not work, especially if the numbers are large. You need to orchestrate the event as carefully as you would do, probably more carefully than you would do in a classroom situation. So all the best. And I'm sure you're going to have an exciting discussion around this topic. Back to you, Anna. Ala, you okay?
Can you pin my video? Can you make it spotlight? Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Somnaidu, for your interesting and you know, it's something to really ponder over with our opening remarks this morning. And a special welcome to those that have just joined in from all over the world. And also a special mention of our YouTube live stream viewers this morning. We welcome you as well. I believe that that's something that you would like to ponder over at this time, the opening remarks that's been given. So before we begin our presentation, we will now conduct our first poll. We'll give you a few minutes. So at the same time, I will also share my screen with, so for the benefit of those that are tuning from the live stream who are not able to view our poll question this morning. Okay, colleagues, friends from all over the world, can you now the first poll is open. The question is, as a student, which one of the following was and is your favorite assignment? So you have a choice of either A, individually written assignment, B, group written assignment, C, individual oral presentation, and D, group oral presentation. So I invite all participants, if they could please participate in this poll before we move on to our first presentation. For those of you that are tuned in from our live stream on YouTube, please, as you can see on the screen here, we have the questions put up for your benefit, as we know that the Zoom polling would not be viewable on your screen. So we would like you to please post your question in the comments section of the live stream feed. Okay. Yes, thank you. I believe that most of you have participated in our first poll this morning. So thank you for your participation, and also for our live stream viewers as well. We'd like to acknowledge them. So now we will move on to the first presentation. So I will introduce you to our there's a co-presentation between these two gentlemen that are here with me. That's my colleagues, Mr. Peter Tuisawau and Mr. Marika Quilamo. So I'll introduce Marika first. Okay, as you can see that on the screen, I think you will see them on the screen at this time. Thank you so much to Marika and Mr. Marika Quilamo and Mr. Peter Tuisawau. Let me just introduce firstly Mr. Marika Quilamo. Marika has worked at the University of the South Pacific since 2006. He teaches in the School of Tourism and Hospitality Management. He teaches first and second year degree courses, undergraduate courses. But prior to joining the university, he's worked as a principal tourism officer for the Ministry of Tourism Fiji. And prior to that, he was also a teacher in high school. He was a chemistry teacher. So it's for him, it's quite a shift from science, doing science, chemistry, and now his interest in tourism. So he's very, his background in, his qualifications come from the area of administration as well as tourism studies. And he's done various professional development over the year in terms of learning and teaching and education. So over the years, he's developed an interest in technology and open educational resources. So we're delighted to have you, Marika. And our second co-presenter, is Peter Tuisawau. He's an instructional designer based at the Center for Flexible Learning. He's worked in the field for over 19 years, and he holds qualifications in sociology and education. And he loves, he's interested in instructional technology, e-learning, equity, and access to education. And in his spare time, he loves to spear dive, camp, make music, and watch contact sports. So that's the second co-presenter this morning, this day, this hour. And Peter and Marika will be presenting on something that's called online collaborative reading. And they'll be sharing on their experiences with using the online collaborative reading tool known as Perusal. So for some of you, this is probably new to you. But if this is something that you've heard for the first time, or you in for something interesting that these two gentlemen will share. So now I'll hand over to Marika and Peter. So Peter will go first.
How do I do this? So can you see my? I see my screen share. Thank you, Ala. Yes, and Bula to everyone out in the region and out there in the world. As Ala has just said, we will be talking basically about our experiences with online collaborative reading and annotation here at USP. In particular, with using the tool perusal. So I'll start us off first, and we'll just say a few things about what perusal is, why some of us use it, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Marika, who will talk about his experience with using it in his course, tourism course, TS 107, and then I'll share my experience with PP 101, the pilot course where we first used perusal. And we hope that as we share our experiences with you, you'll find it useful and it'll provoke you to think about your own practice and how you might want to add this tool to the tools you are using. What is perusal? Again, as I said, the tool for online collaborative reading and annotation. It is based in Harvard and was started in 2015 by a team led by one of the team is Professor Eric Mazur and Brian Lukoff, and there are two others. The tool is free for use, and if you want to know more about pricing, there is a version that you can pay for, but for us at USP, the free version has been quite useful for us. If you see at the bottom, sorry, if you see at the bottom of the screen, there's a capture of what actually happens in a perusal page. So there's a page there that's highlighted by different students from different countries, and people are reading together collaboratively and highlighting and annotating a particular reading. Now, I'd just like to share a bit of how we have set it up. There are a couple of ways to set up a perusal and use it. Here at USP, in our pilot course, we had our students, I think there were 53 students in the pilot, with 53 students situated in 10 different countries in the region. So they were all connected to Moodle, which is our learning management system. And in Moodle was sitting the resources that Dr. Watson, their lecturer, had uploaded, with the resources and activities, including assessments. There were 4 major assessments, one of which was perusal, and the 5. So the perusal assessments, the collaborative online reading assessments were worth 10% in total, 5 of them, and they were all sitting in perusal. So basically in Harvard, the readings where people went, and since perusal was networked with Moodle, our students went through, logged into Moodle, and from wherever they were in the Pacific, and read the same readings, annotated. And the great thing about perusal It uses artificial intelligence to mark students' annotations, and Perusal sent these annotations, the marks, back into the Moodle mark sheet. I'll talk more about that later and elaborate. We'll carry on, but with Perusal, you can upload documents from anywhere, from a folder. You can upload a textbook if your class is using a textbook. You can purchase, your students can purchase the textbook through Perusal. And you can also upload a web page if you wanted students to read and annotate a web page. You probably first need to turn the web page into a PDF document, and also PDF documents your own readings from your computer. And a new feature which we only discovered last week is you can also upload videos for your students to collaboratively read and annotate. Now, in front of you here is this next screen is an actual screen capture of the very first reading that we put up in our pilot course. And on the left, you'll see the reading that's been highlighted, and on the right, the current conversation, the annotations that students are doing, and this particular course, as you'll hear later, the lecturer. This is a Pacific policing. It's a police course, and the complaint by the lecturer was that police people are action people, don't like reading. And right on the first reading, on the first week, these was the kind of conversations that were going on, including on the very first day, one of the policemen put up a video from YouTube in their comment to elaborate on what they were talking about in the reading. So right from day one, it was amazing to see the kinds of conversations, kinds of annotations, the kind of learning that was going on in Perusal. So students were being engaged. Now this is the new feature. This is a screen capture of a video. So students watch the video, click on the add comments. If they want to say something wherever in the video stops, they make a comment. And if you look at the bottom here, you'll see the different marks where so every different annotation or thread that started, there is a mark on the timeline at the bottom here. So if people wanted to go and contribute, they just click on that. Now, Perusal, as I said before, is marked by an algorithm in Perusal. It marks students' annotations. So this is an example what it looks like, the Perusal mark sheet. And it marks it according to quantity of student annotations. You can set a minimum, which they have to annotate the minimum number that you put to get a full mark. But it basically marks it by quantity of annotations done by a student, by quality, by distribution of their annotations. That means that, how distributed, from if they have distributed it from the start, middle, and the end, or not, as well as timeliness. It marks, it grades students by the timeliness of their annotations. Why we use Perusal? This here, there's a photo here of Professor Eric Mazur. from Harvard. He's a physicist and educator at Harvard. And I had the privilege of attending ULearn conference in New Zealand, where he was one of the keynote speakers. And he is a peer teaching champion. That's one of his big things. One of my favorite quote that he from that day was, he mentioned that the professor who's trying to teach the physics student has forgotten the obstacles that he or she had 30 years ago. Whereas the student who's just learned the concept a day before, just one day ago or an hour ago, knows the obstacles that his or her peer has. So the student probably has a better chance of teaching the student the concept. He's also a big social and contextual learning advocate, and he's one of the pioneers of inverted or the flipped classroom. In fact, his keynote address that day was on the flipped classroom, and perusal was just a small part of what we talked on. But it was for me and my colleague the biggest takeaway from that conference. For Professor Mercer, he's if you go to the perusal website, you'll see a video. His reason for using perusal or for coming up with this is, he says, I had a need to move the transfer of information outside my classroom. And by transfer of information, he means things like the lecture, which he calls a transfer of information. He's taken his lecture out of the classroom, so the students do the reading before they come to class. And in the class itself, he does active learning, active teaching. So he even does experiments in his lectures. That's how he's done what is called the inverted classroom. And I believe he's now doing 100% during the COVID-19 lockdown period. He's moved totally online, and he's probably doing something like some Marika and I are going to share with you. Why we use it at USP? Like Dr. Watson said, policemen don't like reading, they're action people. One of the Vanuatu tutors that I worked with said neither carrot nor stick approach works for getting his students to read. And this too is not a problem that's only here in the Pacific. It's a first world problem as well, as apparently 70% of students, according to a 2016 survey, found that 70% of students don't read, even when the readings are assessed. So that was for us the main reason we wanted to use perusal. We wanted to address the reason of students not reading. So we thought our students here in the Pacific are mostly students, especially the ones from the rural areas of our island nations, still do a lot of things collaboratively. They're communal people, social people, and why don't we give perusal a shot? We've always sent our students to read on their own, independently, in isolation. Maybe if we got them to read together, collaboratively, it might work. And we'll share with you. I'll ask my colleague Marika to share with you his experience with TS 107 before I come back and share my experience.
Stop sharing yours.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. I can't share. Okay. Thank you, Peter. It's great to be speaking to you all today. And what I will be sharing with you in the next few minutes is simply my experience this semester as an instructor taking a 100 level course. And this course, for a background, this course was offered only in print mode this semester. So you would all understand when we had our first case of COVID-19 here in Fiji, government made a decision to close schools in the West. And as a result of that, the University of the South Pacific senior management team made a decision to also get our students to go for their mid-semester break. And after a few days, we also had the announcement that all studies were going to shift from face-to-face and all move to online. And as you've heard in the brief introduction, okay, the South Pacific is quite unique as the University of the South Pacific is quite unique as a university because of the students that make up this university. Okay, there are 12 nations that are part of this regional university, and we have our own issues and challenges, and moving the mode of study from from face to face and print to online. It got us to really think seriously about the approaches that we can use and explore to continue to deliver quality education to our students. And while we were thinking about this, the Center for Flexible Learning here at USP conducted a few workshops, and I attended one. And in this workshop, towards the end of the workshop, one of the exercises was for us to try out this tool that Peter had briefly introduced today, which is the use of perusal as a tool for collaborative learning. And when we were also informed that there was not going to be any face-to-face exam towards the end of the semester, so we had to look for alternative ways of addressing the other components that were usually covered in the final exam. Okay, so in attending this workshop conducted by CFL, where when we were introduced to perusal, I thought this is a great tool, and I can use this as a part of the assessment that I can use to assess my students on the other component that was supposed to be captured in the final exam. So I agreed to try this tool, and that's what I will be sharing my own experience in this, and I was really excited to see, how students were engaged and, the outcome of these. And that's okay. Now, as highlighted by my colleague, this was the other reason why I thought I would try using a perusal as a form of assessment this semester, that students are not reading. In my experience as a course coordinator or an instructor, when students come to class unprepared, not having read the required readings, okay, they are hesitant to participate. They hardly participate. Then the sessions become very much, somewhat like another lecture session, because there's hardly any interaction. And for an instructor, it makes it more difficult to monitor how your students are progressing. And this was why I said I was going to try and use this this mode of learning for my students. Now, the next slide shows some of the things that I've learned in this one exercise that I had with my students. In order to maximize student participation, student engagement, and maximize their learning, because this was a new tool, I had to make sure that the expectations was very clear to the students. So, the use of the Moodle platform and the use of resources to introduce this tool and examples were important. I needed to get students comfortable with this tool, to ensure that they were going to benefit from this mode or this tool that I was going to use. The other thing that I learned, okay, because it was new, what I saw was at the start of the exercise, the level of engagement was a bit slow. So I knew I had to get involved in the engagement and the comments, and so I had to try and encourage them by coming up with providing, showing them exemplary comments, so that they can learn from on how they can participate in making comments. I had to provide feedbacks to encourage them, to give them confidence. And what we also did before I opened up this exercise that was going to be assessed, they had a trial exercise where the students had to try and familiarize themselves with the perusal, and for my presence too was to try and let them know that I was there to to assist and guide, so that they were not hesitant to participate in the exercise. Now, because this was done towards the end of the semester, I tried, because of this webinar, I tried to get some feedback from my students, and unfortunately, only one student replied to my email. And what you can see on your screen are some of the things that this student mentioned, in her experience in the use of perusal as a learning tool. Okay, this is what she said, that it's a great learning platform, which had allowed me to take note of the article about the roles and functions of national tourist organization. It has also helped me in learning much more than what the content of the article was about through postings and posting of the students and the course coordinator. It's a great tool to use with students. And I was actively engaged, and I read through all comments of our cohort, and I now have a better understanding of the role of NTO. So from that, I learned that this activity was achieving the objective of getting students to engage and to learn about that topic. I also asked these two other questions. Did the exercise motivate you to read and understand the article? And that's her answer. Yes, definitely. I read every new comment on the article, and it broadened my knowledge on the subject matter. I also got personal satisfaction when my comments helped other students to understand the article. I also asked what were some of the challenges that the student faced while engaging in the activity, and this was her reply: nothing really. I spent a lot of my time thinking about the questions asked to ensure my response adequately answered the questions raised. This took a lot of my personal time, but it was not really a challenge. And she strongly recommended for USP to use this as a learning tool. Just to conclude, what I want to share, in using perusal, it enables or allows you as an instructor to be able to generate a student activity report where you are able to monitor the progress. And as the semester progresses, you are able to address students through the analysis of how they are participating in the readings that you are giving out. And so that's briefly my experience and the student experience on the use of perusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Marika. Because of time, I'll just quickly run through the rest. So this is our experience of the pilot course, which is a Contemporary Issues in Pacific Policing course, PP 101. So again, the challenge was students don't read. We thought we'll use this solution, online collaborative reading using perusal. And we use this methodology, the Kirkpatrick model, for evaluating interventions. So we check reaction, evaluated reaction, learning, behavior, and results. The reaction from students and teachers was overwhelmingly positive. So you can read there what the students said. I've basically summarized their reactions in those words there. So some of them thought it felt like face-to-face classroom, asynchronous. They liked that they could come in and do their reading and their annotations whenever they finished work, policing, and so on. There's a lot there. Teachers, they like the quality of comments. They like the flow-on effects where the discussion from online, from perusal, went on into the face-to-face tutorials. And particularly they like that the perusal was doing the marking and transferred it efficiently to Moodle, our learning management system. Now, those of you who are might be questioning the marking, when we first got perusal, we gave it to our literature school of literature to have a check. And some of them were actually skeptical, and they tried all sorts of things. They thought, okay, just type in all adjectives all nouns, whatever, all sorts of things they did. And they came away quite impressed with how the algorithm in perusal was doing the marking, because it seemed to pick up those things. Even if you just copied things from the internet and put it in, it reports things that are copied. And again, there's a metric analysis tools available in perusal where it follows up on students and nudges students who are slow into doing their readings. The minus infrastructural issues with, particularly in the Solomon Islands, where one policeman was using his police station's Wi-Fi and it didn't quite work. So we had to advise him to go to the campus to do his perusal readings, and it seemed to work there. Again, 1 or 2 students were embarrassed about their English and were embarrassed to post because of the standard of other people's English was higher than theirs. So they were mostly probably lurking. And again, not all the students participated. 19 students did not participate, but 64% participated. We would like to address this, even though this is still much, much better than what was reported in the States, where 70% of students don't read even when readings are assessed. Skills, knowledge, and attitudes seem to have been acquired. As you see, this is the 5 readings, and these are the results. So the black stands for students who got full marks. So 12 students on the first assignment got full marks, 17 got a 0. So as it went on to the second one, the full marks went up and the zeros went down to 8. And as it progressed through the semester, the full people who got full marks went up to 23, while in the last 2 perusal readings, students who got 0 went down to 0. So there were no students in the last 2 assignments who got 0. So it seems to show that they acquired skills as they use the tool. These are the results across the other 3 assessments. So it shows that the results transferred across to the other assessments. So online quizzes, the people who didn't do the perusal readings, the 15% passed and 89% failed, whereas the opposite happened for those who did, in the yellow. Again, short assignments, short answer assignment, the same thing was repeated. Only 71% passed for this particular assignment, 10% passed of the group, of the non-participants, people, the control group. And you'll see that right across. Even with the readings, there were other readings. We noticed that the students who did the perusal readings read more than the students who didn't do the perusal readings. The purple bar there stands for those who never did any reading. So only one of the perusal participants didn't do any of the other readings that were in that course, whereas about 9 students in the control group didn't do any other readings apart from perusal. Impact on society, and an inspector from the Cook Islands who actually runs their training program had this to say: being a first time to using perusal, I've already seen the usefulness of this tool to incorporate into my organization's capacity development exercise. So that was his plan, to use it in their training school. So hopefully we've shown you how perusal has facilitated the online collaborative reading, peer teaching and assessment, and the reaction and the results and behavior of our students and teachers seem to show that they generally found it useful. So thank you very much from Peter and Marika. Thank you for your attention. I'll now hand over back to Alan.
Yes, thank you so much to our co-presenters this morning, this hour. That's to Marika and Peter. I would just like to remind those that our participants this morning, if you do have any questions or comments regarding their, let me repeat that again. Thank you so much, Marika and Peter, for your presentation this morning on online collaborative reading. I would just like to remind our participants this morning, should you have any questions, please, or comments regarding the presentations that have been done so far, please, could you post this in the Q&A forum, okay? Do not wait until the Q&A segment at the end. If you have questions, please start posting them in the Q&A forum. Okay, now we'll move on to our second presentation this hour. I would like to specially welcome Dr. Shika Raturi. Okay, Dr. Shika Raturi is from the School of Education. That's part of the Faculty of Arts, Law and Education here at the university. She's quite a seasoned educator. Okay, she's been in teaching for over 20 years, to be more precise. And Shika has qualifications in the area of chemistry and education, and she has a PhD in education. And I believe a PhD focus was centered around e-learning, virtual learning, okay, virtual learning. And she's also certified online instructor with the Online Learning Consortium in USA, with specialization in online pedagogy and administration. And she's also a certified reviewer with the Quality Matters in terms of reviewing online and blended courses. Currently, she's a section head for tertiary teaching and learning and e-learning, and she coordinates the postgraduate tertiary teaching certification. This is a program that is offered to teaching staff or academic staff here at the university. So without further ado, I'd like to give the time now to Dr. Shika Raturi for her presentation. Okay, while we're waiting for Dr. Shika to come on, I would just like to share the poll results. Okay. The poll results, okay. While waiting for Dr. Shika to come on. As you can see there, the poll question that we had, that this will inform her presentation this morning, this hour. As a student, which one of the following is your favorite assignment? And interestingly, as you can see there, I've shared it with all of you. You see that majority have voted for individually written assignments. So that's quite an interesting finding this hour, that most of you prefer to have individually written assignment. So that is our poll results this hour. And I'd like to also note that we also have our viewers from our live stream feed on YouTube. And I hope that you are also been participating in this poll through providing your feedback through the comment section in on the live stream feed.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We are having a bit of a technical glitch here. My Mac would not accept me as a presenter. So I had to change my computer. So please give us a few minutes as I try and upload my presentation onto this laptop. You might want to stop while I'm opening that up. Yes, Ala just reminded me that the poll result had come, and it is quite interesting. My audience did not disappoint me because I was thinking you will all lean towards individual presentation and individual write-ups. So a good 75% of population here has leaned towards that. So that is something quite interesting. What I would like, if you don't mind, is to type in the reason for your preferred assignment. Why is it that you preferred that as your as your preference? I am now trying to share the screen here. It's a new computer, so please give me a minute. So thank you very much, colleagues. It is really a pleasure to be here and to share with everyone our online learning and teaching experiences. Before we even get started, I would like us to all interact. We have a lot of wisdom within this group, and so because we have a lot of wisdom in here, I would really appreciate if you could share your experiences in the chat box as we discuss some of the things that I have gathered as I have been teaching this particular course for the last nearly 10 years now. So so this is just a quick slide here for you to see that our 12-member countries is being supported by USP-NET, where 2 satellite systems are basically supporting our learning and teaching processes. In this presentation, I'll first share with you what meaningful learning means to me and the basis of my perspective, some of the keywords, some relationships of interest, and then the context very briefly, because Ms. Sala has already touched on that, but I would focus mainly on the ED 403 course that I am going to be discussing with you. I will share the strategy, and the strategy will cover basically the need for this particular assignment and the online tools and contextualizing of online tools and the course in itself. And then I'll briefly share with you my reflections. So you could all type in what meaningful learning means to you. And I am sharing my own sentiments on meaningful learning, which to me is that I think learning becomes meaningful when one can apply the knowledge and skills gained. This, of course, is my perspective, and it is based on many years of tertiary teaching, research, and community outreaches, and in particular, the last 10 years of my engagement in the area of academic development and tertiary teacher education. So some of the keywords here, and you are familiar with most of them, I'm sure. Virtual learning environment. What we are in right now is a virtual learning environment. An online course is simply a course where 80% of the course content and delivery is done with the use of ICTs, information communication and technologies. Web conferencing tool is a term that I would use in the presentation. And so our medium here is a web conferencing tool, which is Zoom in this case. Transactional distance is of interest for all of us, because it is a term that was coined by Moore in 1983. And he said that the transactional distance is the distance between the learner and the teacher, which is not merely geographic, but educational and psychological as well. So that is quite a mouthful, but we will touch on this again later on. We have heard the term synchronous and asynchronous a few times now. So I won't dwell on this much, but there are two types of interaction. Synchronous is when they are happening in the same time, the two participants are in the same time discussing something during the same time. Asynchronous is what our colleagues just discussed with the help of Perusal, which is a fantastic tool. And I would definitely want my cohorts to look into this to see how they would like to use it. Some relationships of interests. So we tend to think transactional distance exists in distance learning environment. But what about the traditional learning environments? A student may be physically in the classroom, yet far away from the learning and the instructor. I mean, again, this is my own experience. What do you think? Perhaps you could chat your experience in the chat box. So the belief is that the transactional distance becomes more pronounced as the learner moves away from the instructor. So it becomes imperative to find out how we can reduce this transactional distance. So some of the relationships that are given here on the screen are the strategies for reducing transactional distance and enhancing cognition and satisfaction. So what we see is that interaction underpins all the strategies here. There are 5 types of interaction that we try and focus on as we design the courses and as we deliver the courses. The first 3 types of interactions were given by Moore, and this is to do with learner content, learner instructor, and learner learner. The 4th type of interaction came about when we got a lot of use of ICTs, and as we are all at the moment talking about, oh, this does not open here, or I had to move from my laptop to this laptop. So this is basically the user interface interaction. So that's the 4th type of interaction, which is learner interface interaction. And the last one is quite close to our hearts, and which is what my colleague, Mr. Marika, mentioned, and that was that there are some lurkers here, and that is actually a vicarious interaction. So in that interaction, what is happening is that students are not saying anything, they're lurking around, observing each other. So how can we enhance the opportunities for interaction? And also ensure engagement. Again, as I said earlier, I pointed out earlier, I know we have a lot of wisdom within this group. I would really like your input on what are some of the ways that you utilize to enhance interaction in your classroom. And sometimes interaction can be just mere interaction, but how do we ensure that this interaction is also leading to engagement? Now, the next few slides are going to talk about the context, but I'm not going to deal with the context in detail because especially the first one, Ms. Ala has already taken you all through this particular context of who we are as a university and how diverse is our context. I would focus on basically the course and my program that I coordinate here at USP. We use Moodle as the university-wide learning management system. So that's one good thing. There is consistency all across. So all the courses at USP must have their course content on the Moodle shell. And interestingly, what we see is that the tertiary institutions around the region are also making use of Moodle. So we can see there is quite a fondness towards Moodle in the region itself. We heavily depend on our support services, and I cannot emphasize enough how much work goes behind the scenes by these support services, which are Center of Flexible Learning, Information Technology Services, Student Learning Support, Library Services, Student Academic Services. Now, for us educators, as we design the courses, educational technologists, learning designers, and the Moodle support are extremely important when we are designing the course. When we are delivering it, then information technology services also come in, student learning support, library services, and the academic services also come in. We have 7 graduate outcomes at USP. So when we teach, we try and align our work as closely as possible with these graduate outcomes. In this particular example that I would be sharing with you, it is actually very closely aligned with communication, creativity, critical thinking, and teamwork, and of course, ethics. So the program focuses on, so the presentation focuses on the PGCTT course. And in this course, we have 3 online courses that are 14-week long. All the candidates are tertiary teachers from USP, and we have also tertiary teachers from other tertiary institutions or post-secondary institutions in the region. So what you would see is that they're not your typical postgraduate student. They are my colleagues. Some of them have just come into learning and teaching. So they're very new, but they are young and they are fresh into teaching. So they come with lots of good ideas. PGCTT prepares candidates on all aspects of teaching, learning, and assessment. And because we offer courses in the 4 different learning environments, we also make sure that students get a practice in these learning environments. The assessment in the course that I will be looking at, which is Innovations in Learning Technologies and Professional Practice, it is coded as 8403. It is aligned with the course learning outcomes, program learning outcomes, but also graduate outcomes, and also the accreditation body, which is SEDA, its values they have 3 sets of things, and we make sure they're aligned with those as well. They have core values, and then they have another 2 more things, which I can't remember at the moment. So coming back to our question, how can we enhance opportunities for interaction and also ensure engagement? So our strategy for that is, let's make them collaborate. Let's provide spaces where the candidates can collaborate. Let's provide them tools. There are plenty of tools on Moodle, integrated into Moodle, and even outside Moodle, which are excellent collaboration tool, and let them collaborate using those tools. We have refined these processes over the years. As I mentioned, the first time the course was offered was in 2012. And we have been doing a lot of action research, a lot of student feedback is being gathered. And so it is really work in progress. And I would not say that our journey stops here. We will definitely find more interesting and more ideas that will come from our candidates, which may implement in the next few years. So the PGCTT course is, in this particular course, we make sure that the students introduce themselves, and they do that in the introduction forum, like all the other courses. But in this particular course, we also ask them to share their virtual context, that is Skype, Twitter, and Gmail. And we are very particular about that because they would be making use of these 3 contexts as they collaborate in different assignments. So it is a good idea, I believe, to provide introduction prompts and questions that are useful for your course. So in my course, those 3 are useful things for the students to share with each other. By the time candidates come to this course, they have already spent 2 semesters with their peers in the 2 previous courses. So there is already a good bonding between them. And they are asked to select their group in week 1, such that by the beginning of week 2, they can start working in groups. Again, groups occasionally experience free riders or procrastinators, which can impact groups' output. So having individual and group deliverables at different intervals during the semester ensures that everyone is working. And if there is still a problem, the instructor will intervene, but that would only happen if the group does not get a response from their weak link. For this purpose, we also ensure that TLAs and teaching learning activities and assessment tasks are designed for group work, not just fully, but partially, so that some of the things can be done individually. In all the tasks, participants are required to engage in providing informal and formal feedback. And in some cases, they provide formal feedback as per the rubric provided to them. So I was hoping that we take a virtual tour of the course, but it is possible that we may not be able to do that. So I am going to quickly type in. Because what I wanted to show you was how we have oh, so we will have to give us a moment. So this is our course, and you would see that the interface is extremely simple. The design is extremely simple. And this is to ensure that all our candidates in the remote islands can easily access the course. At times we have our tertiary teachers who have traveled within their small islands, they have traveled to the other remote islands, and there the internet connectivity is further weaker. So we want to ensure that they can actually look at the course content when they are also doing their own work. So you would see that we have a software that has been integrated by Moodle by our Moodle team into this particular course. Because I required this, we make use of Big Blue button. And then you see that there is Twitter feed, because there's a Twitter handle for the course, and the Twitter feed come in here for the course. And then we have a backup, which we did this time round because of COVID. We weren't sure how many slots would our I.T.S Zoom would be able to provide us. And so we wanted to have a standalone backup where the students could go in and work whenever they wanted. So we had two web conferencing softwares for students in this particular course. So this is about the course, and I would like to now again go back. So give me a moment, please, and we will share this again. I think we were in the next one. Right. So just to give you a quick view of what are the various tools that we make use of in this course. And by in no way I would want you to think that this is what each online course must be using at USP or should be using. But because this is a course which prepares tertiary teachers in innovations in learning technologies, we try and give them a flavor of learning technologies as much as we can. So they experience it, and then they also try and utilize when they go back to their own course to redesign if they wish to do so. Professor Son had earlier talked about collaboration tool, and he gave us two new tools, I believe, which is interesting. And I would definitely ask candidates to try those and give us their feedback. However, what we use here are Google Apps. Google Docs and Slides are our quite popular tools that we make use of. And in this particular course especially, these are the tools that we make use of. So I will be talking about one of the examples, which is review paper and presentation. And the tools and technologies used are good old discussion forum and email, because I think there is value in it. So what we do in this particular assignment is a balance of asynchronous and synchronous tools. So, and then we have Google Docs, Slides, PowerPoint, web conferencing tool, which could be either one of these tools that I have mentioned here. So one of the assessment tasks in this course, as I mentioned, is review paper and presentation. As we move to online platform, the importance of scaffolding cannot be emphasized enough. The course outline clearly articulates plagiarism and use of Turnitin softwares. So besides using Turnitin as a policing tool, we also point towards Turnitin as an excellent learning tool. And a detailed report can be provided to the participants if they ask for it. And so they can actually see how Turnitin picks up similarities and how it refers to different sources that information is being picked up from. We give stepwise instructions. I would not take you again because these are again hyperlinked to another file, but because I have moved laptops, I don't think it will pick it up here again. And I know we are short of time, so I would just have to go through it quickly. Perhaps I'll just take you through it in this one. So in instructions, what we do is that the assignment sheet in itself is quite elaborate. It scaffolds for the participants. What are they required to do? So the instructions need to be clear. At what stage they will be engaged in individual work. At what stage the individual work becomes group work. And what are the different deliverables, at what time they have to provide these deliverables. Everything is listed down in that stepwise instructions inside that assignment sheet for this particular assignment. There is also a rubric given to them along with that instruction so that there are no more surprises. And they can clearly see what will they be assessed on. So at times, if something is not clear, they could always discuss it with me or discuss with each other, and we can again meet on, we generally meet on Big Blue Button or Zoom, whatever is available. They're also provided the grade book. And when I say grade book, because we have different deliverables, each deliverable has a certain percentage of the total mark. So they clearly see which one is weighted to what percentage, and which one will be assessed by the course coordinator, and which one will be assessed by the team members or themselves. So that grade books gives them a very, very clear understanding of what are the different marking criteria within this assignment. So the deliverables and timelines, so this particular assignment starts from week 8 onwards, because what happens is by the time we hit week 7, the participants have already looked into a number of learning technologies, the trends in learning technologies and stuff like that. So they then have gained a fair bit of understanding of what are the ICT tools that are available for the learning and teaching issues that they are going to be, that they would like to solve. And so when they come to week 8, and this is after a semester break, a week-long semester break, they actually have a fair bit of idea of what topic would they like to work on. So each one of them will give us an individual topic within the group. They are working within the group. Even within the group, they will give us an individual topic, and then they will also see how each topic is linking to the group's main topic, because the group will first identify a bigger problem, and then they would have their own small problems that they would like to look into. So all that is happening in week 8. And by week 10, they are required to submit their individual paper. But before that, they have opportunity to share this paper through Google Docs and Google Slides, some slides based on their paper, with their group members, so that they can receive a peer feedback on that, and that will help them strengthen their work. So they do that within those 2 weeks, and they submit the individual paper, and then from that time onward, they start working towards the group paper, which they will then present in a week 14, and they also write a review paper. So they write a review paper and they make a presentation related to that review paper in week 14. So you can see that both individual effort and the team efforts are clearly highlighted throughout this process. And if they want to practice presenting online, they have opportunities to do that also throughout the semester. By the time they come in ED 403, and we also do that in the first course, they also do a similar kind of exercise. We always ensure that when the first time round, candidates come from a virtual session such as this one, like Ms. Ala took us through housekeeping, we would ensure that the candidates are taken through housekeeping, and they would also have more opportunities to get to familiarize themselves with this learning environment, because it can be quite intimidating if somebody was doing it for the first time. So we do that as the initial preparation, but for the group paper, they get practice session slots. They can come and they can use those slots to then practice as a group, because there is only one presentation and each one of them is going to take turn to present a few slides and talk. So that requires a good amount of understanding between the group members. So that is what happens during these practice session. So generally we have week 14 where the presentation is it happens. The Friday of week 14 is where the presentation happens. Each group will take turn to present and ask questions from the team that is presenting during the Q&A session, and then they will assess each other as well. So the review paper, individual and group paper, they receive peer feedback for the individual paper, but it is moderated by the course coordinator for the marks if the course coordinator feels the need to do so. The group paper is purely marked by the course coordinator. However, the presentation is where the course coordinator just takes a back seat, but only moderates if required. And it is solely done by two means. One is the group assesses itself as a group. So there's a self-assessment component to it, which I believe is a very powerful tool if we can utilize it well and if the candidates can understand its value. So there is a bit of negotiation that goes around there. And then also they assess another group. So there is self-assessment component, and then there is a peer assessment component. When they assess, they have to provide justification for the marks that they are giving. So again, there's a lot of thinking that goes on during this time. They take time to reflect on their work once again. So there are spaces that are provided throughout this particular assignment where the students are taking time to look back into their work and then say, oh, okay, so this is what I need to do. And so they will strengthen it further. And at the end of the day, when everything is done, they are giving marks to each other. Now they can't go back really, but they have to justify why why we should be getting this mark. And if their justification is strong enough, and then the course coordinator would just accept the mark as is. So this is about the review paper and the presentation. So I believe this particular assignment enhances all kinds of interactions. The role of group members in interaction is quite important. And so the group dynamics is something that is crucial to this assignment. There have been occasional episodes of where I had to intervene, and you would think these are tertiary teachers. Yes, this happens, but we know this also happens at workplace. So it can happen due to various reasons. So we would need to have a bit of a chat, and then the group goes back to working together. So what we see is, as I had mentioned earlier, all kinds of interactions are happening here because in the first instance, they are discussing it in the discussion forum or in the email with their peers and the course coordinator. So learner and learner instructor interaction has happened. Then they go writing the paper where they interact with the content. And so learner content interaction is happening. They can also come back to the course, look at the materials that is given there, and then learner interface interaction again happens when they are preparing the review paper, the presentation, and when they are also giving it. a lot of vicarious interaction happens here, where what we see is that some candidates take time to give their topic, and they would just sit back and not say anything until everybody has said something. And I believe that is also quite powerful, because what is happening is that particular candidate, and we cannot forget the cohort here is quite diverse. It will have tertiary teachers from our member countries, where some are small islands, some are bigger islands, some can be even within that small island coming from a different island. So there are all kinds of things happening. They may not have access to adequate resource. So it could be for various reasons that they may want to be quiet and learn from others' discussion. And then they finally say, this is what we want to work on. So throughout, we see all kinds of interactions happen. We have seen how this particular assignment provides opportunities for both synchronous and asynchronous interaction, because I think there is power in both. And finally, our alignment with the graduate outcome, which I'm sure you can now see that this is happening. Critical thinking is happening. Creativity, of course, they have to be creative in order to come up with that review paper and the presentation. Communication skills, yes, because they're going to present it in a platform like this one. And collaboration skills is underpinning the whole of this process. There are plenty of spaces for metacognition here, which I also mentioned earlier, when they are writing, starting from the process of picking up a topic, through to sharing the review paper, then getting the peer feedback, and then reflecting back again on their own journey of how they wrote the whole paper, the slides, and receiving the feedback, thinking again about what they were thinking earlier. And then when they collaborate, there is again a space for them to think about each other's work, their own work, and how it has evolved as a group work. So there are lots of different kinds of opportunities. And most importantly, I think the self-assessment and peer assessment is something I recommend to everyone when I conduct a teacher training session or I give a talk, that we don't quite utilize it enough. But if we have a good rubric, and if we can help students understand the rubric and how they will be using it, the peer assessment and self-assessment processes can be quite powerful, because then students become quite critical about their own work. Challenges: keeping up with the changing tools and technologies can be a little daunting for people who do not quite like technology. Internet connectivity, everyone has talked about it, and I can only just emphasize again, internet connectivity, because of our synchronous session, is extremely important. We really need a lot of IT support for, especially when it comes to presenting online. And we're very fortunate that we have a very good support in Lothala, but in small islands, and that too in the outer islands, we don't quite have that kind of support all the time. So we have to make sure that our candidates have that kind of support. And challenges, that, as I had mentioned earlier, group dynamics sometimes can be a bit tricky because of individual personality or because of circumstances. During COVID, we had to be very mindful of how we talk with each other, even within the group. So that was something the course coordinator or the instructor of the course can remind the candidates of, whether it's in private emails or it's in a group email or it's in your news notification through the Moodle forum. But there are ways to remind participants or the course or the students of the kind of language we use with each other, or if we are getting aggressive and impatient, that the deadline is coming and we need to give in our work. So those are some of the challenges. I really think, and I believe collaboration is way forward. and not only because these are tertiary teachers, but also because of what's been happening in the last 4 to 5 months. It is becoming increasingly important that we rethink our education system, our formal education system. How are we assessing our student? And is this how we should be assessing our student? Is an exam the only answer to assessing the students? Yes, we give tests, the tests that are there for 40% or 60%, whatever the courses are coming up with. But is it really necessary? Can we have a project-based? Professor Som earlier talked about problem-based learning, and there's also project-based learning. There is case study. So can we make use of all these different kinds of strategies and think of assessment in that light, and basically look into how we can revamp basically education system? Empathy has become the buzzword now. Buzzword, I say, because whether it's at your workplace, or it's with the student, or you visit a doctor's clinic, everybody is talking about how we deal with the other person is becoming increasingly important. And in the virtual learning environment, it's even more important because we don't see each other all the time. At the moment, you can see me, but I cannot see you. So I do not know what you must be thinking or what is your expression like. So I need to be mindful of how I am interacting with other individuals within that course. Appropriate technologies is the key. There is no point having a fancy technology if it is not going to work in our region. And majority of the countries, even some parts of US and then the so-called developed countries, do not have good internet access. So I think it's increasingly important that we think about using technologies that are appropriate, keeping alternatives in place. Should this not succeed, I'm going to use that, and making that clear with to your students. Online facilitation skills of instructors is quite important. And here I would say the instructor learner ratio is extremely important. We have large online classes, and with MOOC, people think, okay, if the MOOC can be thousands, why not online classes in hundreds? Or we have generic courses where we have in thousands. So this needs to be given a good consideration. I'm glad Perusal's research tells us that the automated marking works, because that is useful, especially for our generic courses. So I would highly recommend. So this Talanoa has been extremely important with Mr. Pita and with Mr. Marika. And I think those are the kind of things we should be taking from here. Do I want to try automated because I've got lots of students in my class and it will help me? So how about using Perusal? Maybe I just need to have a chat with Mr. Tuisawa, Mr. Pita, and say, I want to use it because he works with CFL. I want to use it. Can you come and help me? How do I use it? We all have educational technologists and learning designers who are brilliant, who are extremely helpful and supportive. And I think all we need to do is just give them a call and say, I need to use this. Can you help me? So this is my plea to all my colleagues out there, that don't hesitate. If you find a new tool, get in touch with the staff here. ICT access, support, and skills of learners are extremely important. Again, some faculties are doing some work from their own side, but I know CFL has also been doing some remarkable work in this, and I think we need to do more. Because with changing times, there is going to be more need, and I think we just need to continue to do more and more of that. ICT related infrastructure, and why I say related is because it's not just about a computer and the skills, it's also about what is powering my computer. A particular island has does not have good energy system. So how are the students going to power their computer? So I would say the whole package is what we need to look at. I would focus on developing countries. I am from a developing country. I've taught throughout my life in developing countries, so it is very close to my heart. So developing countries and where minorities are in the developed countries, I believe sometimes the infrastructure is not the best. And those are some of the things that the policymakers, the governments need to be looking at. And with this, I would like to acknowledge the support teams that work tirelessly behind the scenes. So a big Vinaka Vakalevu to all the support services at USP, in particular CFL, the educational technologists, learning designers, and the learning management systems support team, the I.T.S around the region, and also the Zoom team, because I know my Zoom colleagues at I.T.S have been wonderful. Whenever a particular tool did not work, they were very quick in sending us the link. So it is really teamwork. Whatever we do as academics, it's not just something, especially in an online environment, it's not something we can do alone. We need the goodwill and support from all of these people, campus directors, the staff, student learning support team, and the library services. All of them are very crucial when we start working online. And it would also require that that we have set online platforms, especially with the last two ones, the library services and the student learning support team later on. So thank you so much. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. And I believe you. Can you assign host to me, please? Yes, okay. I'm so used to it. So we are, please bear with me, giving the host privilege back to our beautiful host.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentations that we've just had. And I would like to just offer our sincere apologies for taking extra bits of your time. I have to admit, we've gone over the time that we have set forth in our adverts. So I sincerely apologize, but I thank you for staying on beyond the time. And it looks like we have answered most of the questions under the Q&A forum. Can you all hear me? Can I get a thumbs up from one of the panelists if they can hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. And I thank you all for the answers that you've been posting under the Q&A forum. Thank you for that. And I believe most of the questions have been answered, but I think there's one remaining question that is left to be. Yes, there's a question which remains, and that's from Mr. Marikandenge. Mr. Marikandenge hails from the Fiji Islands, and he's from our I would say sister and brotherly University of Fiji. His question, how do you manage contact hours with students through online teaching as per requirement by the Fiji Higher Education Commission? And I believe if I were to relate it to those that are outside of Fiji, you may have also such requirements as well, in terms of contact hours, in terms of your Fiji Higher Education Commission body for you, who sets the policies and the criteria for operation. So I would just like to give that question to Dr. Shika Raturi, if you could answer that question, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Mr. Degay about when you're saying contact hours, are you referring to the real-time contact hours? Because you see, there are contact hours can be asynchronous, they don't have to be in the same time. So we have a lot of that kind of to and fro, the interaction happening between the the student and the instructor, or the student with the course, or the student. So the assignments and the learning activities, they clearly highlight the number of hours that would be utilized by the students when they do this particular course. So when we design a course, we are required to give that. And the course will not pass through our different committees if it does not meet that criteria. So whether it is online teaching, blended, on print, or face-to-face, whatever, it does not really matter. It has to meet the requirements set by the university, and it goes through each one of those committees. So it has been looked at and rather interrogated at different levels. So we are very sure at the end of the day, when we give out something when we offer something, it is foolproof. Perhaps if any one of my colleagues would like to mention something, feel free, colleagues.
Okay, perhaps any of our colleagues would like to, other panel of presenters would like to comment on that. Okay, there's a question that's coming in from the Q&A forum about poll 2. I think because we are running out of time, we will be not administering the second poll. But if there's any lasting comments, lasting comments from our panel of speakers this hour, perhaps even Professor Som, or Peter and Marika, if you have any lasting comments to make, and Dr. Shika as well, before I give the summing up.
Thank you all. I just wanted to congratulate everybody and thank everybody for making the time and effort. A lot has been said, and I'm glad that it's going to be recorded. It's being recorded and will be available for further collaboration and interaction, as Shika has pointed out to us, the importance of interaction. So onwards and upwards, there's more to come, I'm pretty sure. And that's all I need to say right now.
May I ask PBC if you could share your video, please?
Okie dokie. All right, a picture of beautiful beach in Brazil, northeastern part of Brazil. Just repeat what I wanted to say. I just wanted to thank you, Ala, and your team, and all the contributors to today's session, the speakers and the presenters. It takes a lot of time to organize these kinds of things. But I'm sure, I'm very confident, as the comments have shown, that this is useful, and I'm delighted that it's worked flawlessly and well, which always well, and suggests that these things are useful, but that's about it. That's about all I wanted to say. And as I was saying, I'm glad this is recorded, and that people will be able to access both the video and the text later time. Thanks, Alan.
Okay, thank you for that, Professor Som. Thank you for that lasting comments. Colleagues, we've come to the end of our webinar. Thank you. And before I give the sum up, I would just like to acknowledge people that have been patiently wearing it out towards the extra time that we have. I'd like to take note of Mr. Paul Drake. Thank you for staying right till the end. We also like to acknowledge all our participants from within the university. Thank you so much. I'd like to give a big mighty mbula hello to our former CFL colleague, Miss Nilam Narayan, who's now based in Australia. She's doing so well in the distance and flexible learning field in one of the universities in Australia, that's University of New England. We are happy to see you today. Mr. Peter Binder, thank you for availing your time this hour to attend this, to participate in this. We also have a participant all the way from Japan, Mr. Haoi Mashimo. Thank you so much for availing your time to participate in this webinar. And we hope that what we've shared today is of use to the work that you do. And if you need time to revisit it, we'll be sharing the recording, the link to the recording within 1 to 2 weeks after this webinar. So you could revisit that again. So just to sum up on what has been shared this hour, or rather 2 hours, there were like 3-4 keywords that I picked out of the presentations, including the opening address, and that's think and rethink. Professor Som has alluded to the fact that, you know, with when you go into online learning, virtual learning, there's a lot of thinking that goes behind doing this, and there's a team of people that you would need to consult. If you have that privilege to have various IT people and learning designers, that you need to seek advice in terms of ensuring that you're learning, whatever courses and learning that you deliver is engaging, is of benefit to those that you are, the learners that you are going to be serving. And rethinking as well, this also begs the question, back to the theme of this webinar, rethinking strategies. Dr. Shikara has alluded to, you know, raise the question, you know, is it just exams and tests? Is that the only way that you can appropriately assess students for critical thinking and all these other metacognition, all these other various skills? You know, she posed that question, and it's something that as educationists that we need to ponder over, the importance of rethinking assessment strategies. Now that we're moving into this very critical time of COVID, it begs, I know, the importance of us to do that, to rethink, to think and rethink. Empathy, I thought that was an interesting point that Dr. Shika had talked about, and how more than ever, moving our learning online, the need to be more conscious of being more empathetic when we are delivering our teaching to learners, especially because we may not have the luxury of face-to-face and touch and feel. So that's very important. And collaboration, and our co-presenters of Marika and Peter, thank you so much. They shared about the very, very effective, interesting tool, collaborative online tool of perusal. And I know there are a lot of questions that have been posted. People are really keen to pursue this. And I think, and it would be really great to see other examples of how perusal is used in other universities, in other settings, especially when this is just probably new to most of you. So that's something that I picked out from the presentation. Collaboration also alludes to the need to be more collaborative online, and there's availability of collaborative tools at our disposal that you can use. But I think Dr. Shika had pointed to a very important caution, is that, you know, you don't have to do, you know, overwhelm students with so many tools. You know, what is appropriate for your context, that would determine the selection of the collaborative tools that you can use. So that's just some of the things that I picked out from the presentations this day. And before I close, I'd like to thank all of you again, the presenters. I'd like to especially thank you, Professor Som. Thank you for your opening remarks. To the presenters, Peter and Marika, as well as Dr. Shikara, thank you so much. And also the team behind this, our I.T.S, as well as our team at CFL, thank you. And of course, not forgetting our participants who've braved the extra hour to sit in and listen to what we have to share. And I sincerely hope that what we have shared today will be of benefit, that you take this and apply it in your work. So that's very important. Before I end, I also want to remind you that there's a recording of this this webinar that will be made available to you. We'll also send you a evaluation following this webinar. So we would like to hear from you and see how we can be of further assistance, but not only that, but also allow us to improve on how we deliver our webinar. And this is a first for us, delivering outside of the four walls of our university. So we thank you. Thank you for your time. And we will end here. And I wish you all a pleasant day and a pleasant rest of the week. Thank you.